So today I'm gonna talk about like how to remain like safe in the cross-chain world from like a DevOps perspective. So my name is Arnaud Delabarre. I work as a necessary DevOps engineer for Nomad. My favorite things are like fixing broken things. It can be like software or like engines. I like to work on DIY projects. Pretty like a topic that I really like to talk about is like how to incentivize people from planting trees or farming oxygens. So I've been like in the industry for like only 6 months. I've been like working as a DevOps engineer for like 15 years. So what is Nomad? Nomad is actually like a protocol cross-chain messaging. And what we've built on top of it is token bridge, and we have also built like a cross-chain governance module. We also have an SDK that is here for like developers who can use it for like building custom application. And what differentiates us is basically like we are using an optimistic like verification to validate transactions. So on the agenda, so I'm gonna talk to you about like what really keeps me awake at night, and the different like components that like constitute our like or bridge, like the on-chain component and the off-chain component, and like how do we try to secure mostly like the off-chain component. And then we're gonna talk about the 3 different pillars of security and how we're applying it at Nomad, and the best ways to start like improving your security as operations. So what keeps me awake? My cat Moustic that play with my feet, but like once I'm awake, I'm actually like have like all those like random thoughts about like why rainbows are actually like curved. It's actually an interesting topic. And also like making sure that Nomad like protocol remain like secure. And the products that we have built on top of it are also like secure. So my anxiety around like security comes from like all this news that we have seen like for the past years or two around like the bridges being hacked. So we have reached like over $1 billion being stolen over like last year. So the different components here that we have for like our token bridge. So it's so we are pushing like smart contracts on like EVMOS, for example, like which is the replica chain, and Ethereum. So the our contracts are of course like open source. So it's like we're like working like in a public facing environment. It brings like some good things and bad things. So working like in open source, so it's great because the community can like see what we're doing and they can contribute, but also like it exposes us to eventually like security vulnerabilities. So on the other side too is like we are deploying to public blockchains. So like the perimeter security. So anyone who basically have permissions might have like who still like private keys to run transactions can hack us. And also like those bridges have been prime targets in the industry overall because there is a lot of money involved as well. And so the blockchain also security like is really helpful for us also like for by using like this cryptographic consensus and decentralization. Now like the off-chain components, it's really what we have seen being hacked over like the last year. And so the agents that we are building are here to orchestrate the actual like movements of the funds from like the blockchain A to blockchain B. And so it's also open source. It's written with Rust. It's running on more like standard like infrastructure. So it runs it runs on like on a cloud. So inside Docker containers and like with like orchestrator with Kubernetes. And so those agents interact directly with the smart contract that are on-chain. And what we're really like trying to apply is like the traditional like security that is like really that has been proven is efficiency like from Web 2. So Web 3 security challenges. Well, one thing is that I've seen is like there is like it's a very new industry, and there is not a lot of like resources or guideline in the way like how we can build the infrastructure. So a lot of like, for example, like the financial industry or like the healthcare industry have all those regulations and like that you have to follow to build your infrastructure and to be compliant in order like to handle, for example, like in the healthcare industry, like to handle like health information. So there's no such like regulation in Web3, and so as a DevOps engineer, it's really hard to know like, am I like doing the right thing or the wrong thing? So the way how we're trying to look at it is like really go over like the different industry and see like what makes sense for like Web3 and trying to apply it. Also, like there's a lot of startups that are very new and like they're building a lot of projects, and their main focus is really like the go-to-market. And a lot of time, like, because we all try to go and be on market first, like, we put aside, like, the security component. And decentralization. So decentralization is actually interesting because we are, like, really, like, the way how we, like, thinking and, like, building systems, we are trying to build it in a way where, like, we assume that the actor or like the component that we're decentralizing is going to be corrupted at some point. And so the goal is like really to, the way how you build it is like to make sure that even if it gets compromised, then like the funds or like the whole system like remain secure. So the way how we like think about security at Nomad is to follow like those three pillars: the people, process, and technology. A lot of time, like the people component and like the people pillar, I mean, and the process is forgotten. And a lot of people think about security as on the technology side. And in this industry, like it's a lot about like the on-chain component. That is very important. However, like the off-chain side of it is also important. So the combination of like all these three pillars really makes security successful. So one thing I would like to really that we should all pay very close attention is the people that work in the industry, your employees, and making sure that like that we're all aligned with like we're all aligned with like the mission and also the values across the organization by like how should we think about security? Is it actually a priority for the organization? Once like the organization and once the organization and everyone is aligned on the priority, we can then also like put in place like a training program for like your employees. And once you have like a training program and like your employee like are aware about like how to handle like, for example, like social engineering, like social engineering. So because like social engineering is really like it's been like 90% of like the security hack that have happened in the past. And so you can then reuse like that and see your employees as like human firewalls once they are well trained, and not like potential like targets for hackers. And the security is also like something that cannot be achieved by one team or like by one person. It's really like a team effort. So as long as like the software engineers, everyone in the company is like always like thinking about security first, then like the whole like we all like here to make it better. Number two, like I would say the process is also very important. Then, for example, I would highly recommend for when we work in the open source fashion, that we embrace like the actual like DevSecOps model. And so DevSecOps model is really like to embed like security as part of like your DevOps model. And the DevOps model is really here like to streamline like your process for like the code to be pushed all the way to production in very quickly. So it's here like to really improve the velocity. And the fact of like embedding like the security part of it, so you are able like to catch like potential vulnerabilities really early on. Like you are like actually like proactive and not reactive on those vulnerabilities. So once you have detected like vulnerabilities, so what you can do is like you need to have a way how to triage those vulnerabilities. So it can be detected like when you are like scanning your infrastructure, or like as part of your CI and CD. So you need like then to think about like how do you assess the risk, if you accept the risk, and when you're planning to resolve it. Another like thing that we should all get better at as developers is like try not to submit like PRs with like 1,000 lines of code that changed. It's very mean for like the person who is going to review your code, and it's also like really bad for security. I haven't seen like anyone like really like paying close attention to those massive PRs, and it's really hard to like to review, and no one wants to do it anyway. So if you want like if you really want like somebody like to pay close attention on the logic and think about like security first, like trying to always like submit small PRs to your peers. And then on the process side too, I highly recommend to schedule like regular security audits. It can be done like internally, can be done like every quarters. It can be done like every quarters or every 6 months, every year. It's up to you. It can be done like, you can do like an internal audit, or you can also do external. I highly also doing both, because like it's always good to have like external eyes and like get external expertise for that. Technology. So when you're like managing a whole stack, what we do is usually like we're using like defense in depth. So the defense in depth is really like kind of like a Swiss cheese layer model, where like as you are adding layer, then the holes start like filling up. So it's the same for like the defense in depth as part of your stack. So here like you have the perimeter. So you can apply perimeter security. So meaning like you should not have physical access to your servers, or no one like should like be able like to touch, to have physical access to it. Then network security. So meaning like have like the right firewalls put in place, not have port range open, and also like that involves like the transport layer. So making sure like everything is encrypted. Then the host level security, making sure you are like hardening your infrastructure, meaning like everything needs to be updated all the time on a regular fashion. So put in place a process around it to make sure that like, or automate it. Ideally it will be automated. Making sure like you're always running the latest and greatest patches, or like on your servers. Then application security, more like embedded as part of the logic. Here's the data. I will like refer it as more like as a blockchain, and yeah. So number 2, protect your production environment. Don't like allow SSH to your engineers, I would say, or trying to think about if your engineer needs SSH, it probably means like because you don't have the right interface set up, and meaning like the interface, like if your developers need access to logs, like, well, need to use like a log management system, or like Matrix, or eventually like need to pull some data, trying to like build and prevent like your employees to really like go and having to SSHing your servers. The number 3 like sounds like kind of obvious, but from my experience, I've seen a lot of like places where you can see secrets in clear, such as like passwords or private keys. So it's always good to remind everyone to encrypt sensitive data. So people like who are able to get to a different layer or like a hacker won't get access to like private keys, for example. So really use like trying to leverage like secret management systems such as Vault, or like if you are using like if you have a cloud provider, like there is like secret managers usually that are embedded. And then think about like how you are going to move your secrets, how you're moving your secrets from that secret manager, and how it's going to live on your inside your Docker container, for example. And then last but not least, setting up monitoring and alerting. So it's always good like knowing that we are being hacked. I mean, always good. No, sorry, it's never good knowing that we're getting hacked. But once you know, then you can put in place like the right defense process that you should have set up prior to that. I know, like, and follow like that process. When you're like being hacked, it's like you don't really have the overhead to think too much. So like putting in place those process prior really helps you, like when there is like urgencies like that, do not to panic and follow the procedure. So the key takeaways here, I would like to say that cybersecurity is not really everyone's responsibility. It is everyone's responsibility in the organization. So even if you have like an InfoSec team or people like really specialized in security, use them as a resource. Like talk to them and see like how you can make the difference, how you can help making the system more secure at your own level. Number two is like the complexity is really like the enemy of security. Well, it's actually the enemy of like many things. It can be also like if you think about processes, if like your process is actually too complex, like it's gonna be a hard time to be adopted by your employees. So sometimes like we don't, or like end the code as well. Like so, take time and think about how can you refactor the process or anything that has been complex. Because like once a process is actually simple, then automation becomes simple. So then you can have your computer works for you, and you don't have to have people, which are like usually like the main bridge. The people are like usually the main bridge on like the security. And then the last one, I would say like to always like stay humble. Perfection is impossible. And like there's no such thing as like a bulletproof like process or system. Always like question your choices that you have made like 6 months ago. If it's different, means like you have learned, and it's great. And if it's still the same, means like here you go, you nail it. So where to learn more about security? Where I like to start usually is like there is like those series about awesome series on GitHub. So I always go, and when I don't know about something, I start from there. And so awesome DevSecOps there is, and awesome security. Those are like great place to start. So thank you. We also at Nomad have a $1 million bug bounty program. So get started. Thank you.